Hi, everybody. It's Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks, where we talk about all things communications, PR, internal, executive, thought leadership, all the things, because everything you say and do speaks for you if you want to do it or not, including the things that you don't do and don't say. They also speak, sometimes louder. Just saying. Today, I'm going to do a follow-up from some questions I got from a recent episode where I think the episode was, you don't have a PR problem, you have a leadership problem. And I got a lot of feedback on that. I'm not sure I have changed my mind. I may have changed some other people's minds, but there's a lot more there. So we're going to pack a little more based on the questions that I got. I guess the first thing to do is talk about what kind of crisis can you have, right? You have lots of different kinds of crises. A crisis can be you're in a war, which you didn't know about, and now you're doing stuff that you didn't know you were going to do. You can have a crisis around earthquake. You can have a crisis around a hurricane. You could, weather, fire, all those kind of things. There's a violent act by someone unrelated to you on your premises. These are things that we've all dealt with. You could have crisis that is a recall of a product, nothing to do with you, but someone else's choices and someone else's mistakes. And then you could have the crises that come from your decisions. They can be personal, like executive malfeasance or bad behavior. Or they could be, and some examples are, when companies lied about performance, or was the exhaust system non-contributing to the pollution or not? You know what I'm talking about. So let me just go a little deeper on this, on the decision kind of things. So yes, it's a crisis when a bad decision's been made, because you have to, depending on what's going on, you might lose market, you might lose customers, you might lose contracts, you might, all the things. You might lose people. People might be at risk, those kind of things. But let's talk about how you get there to that crisis piece. Because most people don't have a PR problem. I mean, they may not be doing good PR. They may not be communicating well with people internally and externally and helping people understand what to do and why. But most companies have decision problems when it comes to this kind of crisis. And it only really becomes a PR problem when everybody else finds out. I hear this all the time. You've got a communications issues. We got to get ahead of the story. We need better messaging. Those things may be true, but that's not really the root, right? No, you need a better decision, because bad stories just don't appear out of nowhere. They're built slowly, quietly over time. They're built layer by layer by layer. It is true someone could be out to get you, but they're not doing it in a vacuum, right? And it can be very expensive to undo that. Which is why you need to be out there telling your story all the time to the people who matter to you for your business. And then decisions people make and the decisions people avoided, that's what no one likes to talk about, because it's a lot easier to fix a sentence than it is to fix a decision. A lot easier. So let me give you a pattern. Something happens inside the company. A shortcut gets taken. A complaint gets ignored. A behavior gets tolerated. And somewhere, someone in the organization thinks this might be a problem, but nothing happens. Because it's inconvenient, or it's uncomfortable, or it's not urgent enough, until it is, until a customer speaks up, until an employee posts something, until a reporter calls. And now suddenly it's urgent and you don't have all the goods you need to actually handle it. Now you're in the conference room talking about messaging, trying to figure out how to position something that never should have happened. That's not a communication problem. That's a leadership and decision-making problem. And here's where this really goes sideways. Leaders think communication is a solution. So they delay, they soften, they hedge. They say things like, we're looking into it, or we're taking this seriously, or we're committed to. All phrases that sound like action and mean absolutely nothing. And people know it. People are tired. Consumers, real people are tired of being lied to, are tired of being messaged, right? And it's because in moments like these, people are not just listening to what you say, they're evaluating. Do you understand what happened? Do you understand the gravity of what happened? Do you take responsibility for it? Are you actually going to do anything about it? That's what they're listening for. And if the answer isn't obvious, trust drops like a rock. Boom. So let's talk about speed for a second. Everyone says you need to move quickly in a crisis. And I have said it, many, many times. And yes, timing absolutely matters, but clarity matters more. than that, because fast and fuzzy, for lack of a better term, is how you make things worse, not better. You put something out that's incomplete or overly careful, or you're trying too hard not to say the wrong thing. And now you've created a second problem. You've told people you really don't understand the situation and that you don't have control over it. And that's what unclear communication signals. It's not just confusion, it's lack of control. And it is true that in a crisis, you may not control everything around you, but you can control yourself. And that's what you got to do. You got to control yourself, what you say, how you say it, when you say it. So here's what really works, right? And it's simpler than people think. One, ultimately you can make a different decision. But in the moment, here's what works. Say what happened. Say what you're doing about it. Say what happens next. That's it. No adjectives, no spin, no paragraph that starts with "we value" or, and an abundance of caution or that kind of thing. Just the truth. Clear, direct, specific. And it's hard to do. It's hard. I get it. And if you're struggling to say it clearly, it's probably because the decision behind it isn't clear either. Maybe you don't know what you're going to do yet. Maybe you're trying to avoid accountability. Maybe you're still debating internally. And that shows up in the message every single time, because communication reflects decisions. It doesn't replace them. I'm just going to say that one more time. Communication reflects decisions. It doesn't replace them. And this is why the best communicators aren't just good with words. They're good with judgment. They push for clarity before messaging. They ask uncomfortable questions. How many times we at Double Forte, we ask a lot of uncomfortable questions. Like, you want to say this and then you say that, and those things compete. Which is more important? They're both important. They can't be. It's not logical. Or how did this happen? We're not going to talk about that, Lee. Well, we're not saying anything until you tell us how this happened, because we don't want to help you make it worse. We only want to make it better. We're here to help. And if you don't tell us the truth, then we cannot help you. So we ask a lot of uncomfortable questions in these kind of situations, because those uncomfortable questions are the only way you can actually help. The answers to those questions are the only means you can the truthful answers to those questions are the only things or what you need to actually help the situation. So again, the best communicators aren't just good with words, because we're good with judgment. We push for clarity before messaging. We ask uncomfortable questions and we force decisions. How many times, we do it? I mean, even down to the littlest thing, right? Sometimes it's a press release, and the press release comes and it gets we write the press release based on information, and then it has to get approved. And you have to get a lot of people to approve things, depending on how big the company is. And then engineering's arguing with marketing, which is arguing with legal. That's not what we're doing. That is what we're doing. I mean, it happens all the time. PR drives decisions all the time because that message is going out. So we're used to that. So when you're hiring a PR firm, communications firm, hire someone who knows how to ask uncomfortable questions. Pro tip. You cannot communicate your way out of something you decided your way into. I'll say that one again, too. You can't communicate your way out of something you decided your way into. So the next time someone says, "we have a PR problem," pause and ask a better question. What decision got us here? That's because that's where the real work is. Everything else is just cleanup. Cleanup on aisle 5, And the kicker is that companies that handle crises well, they're not better at messaging. They're better at deciding. They decide faster. They decide more clearly. They stand behind those decisions. And because of that, communication is so much simpler and so much more believable, because it's true. Communication doesn't fix bad decisions. It reveals them. So if you want better communications, you got to start there with better decisions to do. And thank you to my TED Talk. All right, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Until next time, I'm Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks.